Yeah, I kind of want to break in here and just share a little something that I wrote earlier today that I think is kind of connected to this in a weird, odd way. So I'll just read it real quick.
The like awkward reading into every movement and look and gaze and touch and overthinking every aspect of it. Just the whole thing makes me want to have a panic attack. It's wonderful.
Live by the meme, die by the meme. It's a dizzy perception, these digital lives we live. Where has our minds gone? I used to dream in parables, having conversations of yesteryear, but now I float on the surface, looking for something deeper. Looking for something deeper. Looking for something deeper. In the wild blue yonder. And so this is just a little sketch that I did earlier, and every so often people express the same feeling, and it was like a response to somebody, but floating on the surface, looking for something deeper than the wild blue yonder. Even though I feel like I do always go to the deeper, but there's also this conundrum of the dizzy perception of the digital lives we lead, right? Even when we get to that point of connecting or speaking our truth in whatever form we do, even probably pre-digital age, there's language is a technology that I think in both takes us out of our body and gets us to other places, but also too leaves us with this weird feeling, this weird disconnect, this weird thing, being conscious and the things that we do, all the greatness that we hold and all the trouble and turbulence that we hold. And this is just something I go to all the time. And I love when I see these threads weave and I get connected. And kind of going back to Mac's prompt that he did earlier, if you guys didn't look it up, but he's talking about blockchain and language. And one of the first things that when I came on minds is that I launched onto were ideas are networks. And if you really think about it, these ideas that we're wrestling with, and when we put them out there on minds, somehow, some way, we make these weird connections with people. And if you want to, you could go a little deeper, just reach out to them, message them, and more times than not, they're just as hungry as you are. And if we keep supporting each other and we keep these poetries going, we could keep on just fucking killing it.
Bro, man, just your monologues alone are like as poetic as your pieces. You know what I'm saying? Like whenever I hear you talk, like I've even listened to you on podcasts. I know I'm like fangirling right now, but like I've heard you on podcasts. And whenever you talk, it's just like, you feel like you're talking to a fucking shaman. You know what I'm saying? But your poetry is as equivalent. The first time I heard you, I was like, fuck. Like, we become competitive sometimes, as, creators, and you kind of sharpen yourself up with other people. And I heard your poetry and I was just like, goddamn, he's definitely a sharpener. When I'm dull, I could come back here and sharpen, fine tune. But the poem in general, man, like it was so deep. Deep in a sense because I'm a very fucking like I live in the wormhole. I live in the rabbit hole. You know what I'm saying? Like that's where I dine. I'm always reaching for things because I was telling my wife, I gave my wife an analogy about something where I'm like, if I don't reach, then what am I gonna come to the surface with? You know what I'm saying? Like you gotta go deep in there to come up with everything. If you're going too shallow, what the fuck are you coming up with? Nothing much. So I mean it's beautiful shit. And this is where minds can actually fucking come together and be able to cherry pick things like that. Like it's sometimes I get a little frustrated as a writer. Like I'll go to poet, and I know I'm kind of going on right now, but I go to like an open mic, and some shit will go over people's heads. You know what I'm saying? Like it will go over their heads because it's just it's deeper than the surface. and people out here, people in minds can understand that shit. Like, yo, I totally understood that. Good shit, man.
Yeah, there is something to that. Like Minds does have a deeper um, user, I think, and I don't know what it is. Like maybe it's that there's a little bit of a barrier to entry. You have to really believe in it, and if you have that capacity to believe, you're already reaching. And I love the way you put that. That you have to reach for something in order to come to the surface, because it's true. And I'm constantly impressed by the. I remember being on Google Plus. That was my first. I was joking with Rose earlier because we were talking about Google Plus, how nobody was on it, and it had such a bad rap, and maybe for good reason. But it was the first social site that I was part of, and I had just, I guess, gotten used to that. Most people were kind of just like lame, and you kind of get cynical that way of just thinking your general audience is that lame, but it's not true. You and your work shouldn't be assuming that of people, that they're really only interested in the surface. So okay, I'll give them the surface. If they're only interested in the surface, I'll give them the surface. No, it should be that you're putting out what you're deeply interested in, and you're attracting the people that you need to attract to help you think through your life and what you're trying to do. And I think Minds, for whatever reason, is just at that moment where the people I run into, I can jive with on that level. And so great to hear you talk like that, man. It really is.